And then after Major Lovett, it'd be Jennifer Ballard, but Major Lovett has 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16 minutes.
Hello, sir. I'm retired Major Pat Lovett. I have a business at 2166 Central. I'm sorry, I've known that boy since he was 17 years old. He loves what he does, and he's a martial artist. You should not call him a child or try to put it in that reference. Most of the women that have spoken have either been staunch supporters of the police and fire or police wives. I was in the field. I'm proud to have served beside some of the finest here in Memphis. I was born and raised right here in Memphis by a European immigrant who landed in Memphis and went to work at GE the day it opened and was a factory worker for 33 years. She taught me the real meaning of being an American. The council, the chamber, and the general population doesn't actually realize that every person, almost all that you see out here every day, the people they meet every single day are having a bad day. And we become the object of that pain. The one thing that makes me proud is that we have a very diverse attendance today in the rally and in here, and I've seen the signs, and I want to say I think Dr. King would be proud. Where the person we meet is a victim or a perpetrator, something's happening to them, whether it be a minor consequence, like Mr. Strickland's break-in, or a life-changing event for a death of a loved one. We are the only business that arrests our customers. We are there not only for the victim, but we are also there to protect the rights of the guilty, or the alleged guilty, should I say. I'm very small in comparison to the guys that I work with. But I'm going to give you a little bit of my story because, in essence, I'm going to let you know who you're really dealing with, because we've had a lot of, they did this, they did that, but we're going to put some names with this. In the spring of 1975, there was a recruit class, and I missed getting into that class. So in the summer of that year, in July, I began serving, went into the academy for the reserve class. And I worked for this city for $1 a year and insurance benefits. And I joined that because I wanted to be a police officer. I worked for the Park Commission prior to doing that, and I met a community police officer that got me interested in it, said they were looking for some women. The day I went for my agility test, I was one female with 60 guys. 12 of us walked out. They don't even allow you to do that these days. I purchased my own weapon, and I had to work a minimum of 24 hours a month doing exactly what a regular officer does, and did that for 2 years. During those first 2 years, I assisted with the reserve class that came behind me, and I was instrumental in having one of those recruits removed from the program because of some of his temperament and his adherence to safety on the firing line. The next day, he showed up on my doorstep. From that moment forward, my phone and my address were non-published. I believe that some council members were a little concerned about the retribution that might happen after the council vote in June, and reached out to get some extra protection. We don't have that benefit. We're out here every day. We arrest people. We make somebody mad every day. every single day we're at work. There was not another recruit class until January of 1978. I applied for that class, as did 5 of my cohorts in my reserve class that came on in 75. And because we were so short in the Memphis Police Department, they called us in December of 1977. And because we'd already been working for 2 years, we were commissioned to the state, they put us to work full-time. I was the first and only female assigned to the West Precinct midnight shift for my first 2 years. I listened to the guys argue every night that I came in about having a ride with me. But within the first 2 weeks, they learned that I would go anywhere they would go. I would stand with them, and I had their back. For 24 of my 31 years, I was a supervisor or a commander on this department. While I may not have been the best supervisor people had, at least the officers who worked with me and for me knew that what I expected of them and where they stood with me. If they were wrong, they knew they would be dealt with accordingly. But if they knew they were trying to do the right thing, they wouldn't be thrown under the bus. So I'm going to share some police facts. I want you to know what these guys and their families have gone through over the last 60 years. From 1952 to January of 1983, there were 19 police officers killed in the line of duty. My tour from 1977 to 2008, there was also 19 officers killed in the line of duty. In that 62-year span, at being 38 people, it does average out to what Mr. Hopper had done on his last rant before, to about 1 officer every 2 years. And that is not quite accurate. That's still a lot of officers because the South has always been known for having more deaths than anywhere in the nation. And we worked during that time to make our training even better so that we wouldn't have that. What happened, though, was from May of 1981 to January of 1983, we lost 6 officers, 5 by violence, 1 traffic fatality, which averages out to about 1 every 4 months. With every passing officer, every officer on the street was consciously aware that there by the grace of God go I. Most of us attended every funeral. There were firefighters that answered those calls as well. There were police dispatchers that sat on the other end of that radio and heard the people that they've grown to know and love as they answered those calls, and they could not help them one bit but to send other officers. The officers who we lost, Lieutenant Cox, Lieutenant Oliver, Officer Childress, Officer Hester, Officer Sykes, and Officer Bush. And it's really a shame that I can do those off memory. But we all remembered, because Lieutenant Cox was mine, and he made the last call of his life with me. There's been a discussion of changing the pension benefits and targeting those with 10 years or less in their years of service. Is their service any less valuable? Tim Beecham was shot with 10 years on the job on Christmas Eve. Although he survived, he was left paralyzed. Or Toya Lang was a 9-year veteran who was shot and killed. Officer Dennis Benjamin, who is here today, and he worked for me, and he's sitting here, and he's been in pain most of the time. He was working as a PST on the interstate and was struck in the back with the car. He had a severe back injury. That he's worked for me afterward. He stayed on the job. And through the years, I've got a whole nother thing for Dennis. Dennis's OJI benefits were stopped in 2007, and he was forced to retire. He didn't want to retire in 2008, but that was because he could barely walk. And at that time, he has had he's had 12 back surgeries, 3 brain surgeries. And if he hadn't had insurance, he would have died. If he hadn't had the surgeries, he would have died. The last brain injury caused him to have cornea transplant that requires rejection drops. His meds alone cost him $1,300 a month. His wife no longer